Welcome back to another episode, you guys. My name is Nikki, and I'm about to be joined by my coach, Miss Jenna. She is so fantastic. We have so many things in common, including our topic today, which is being a type A personality, what that actually means. There's a lot of people that have heard of type A. We're going to go over the different types of personality types, but really we're going to focus in on that type A personality because that's what we both are, the benefits of it, but also the struggles of it and why we need to be able to turn it on and off and becoming less type A 100% of the time. So if you relate to this, it's going to help you a ton to understand why it's important and also some of the things that we've done in order to make that become a reality. So stay tuned. Here we go. All right, we are back. Here is Miss Jenna. And what are we talking about today?
So we are going to be talking about types of personalities, and I actually learned something new in researching for this, that there are multiple types of personalities, not just A and B.
Yes.
So I think we all get in this like notion, I'm either type A or type B. Well, there's actually a C and a D. And we're not going to go into those quite as much, but I think something to think about as you are listening to this is you may identify stronger with one, but you may pull in characteristics from another. It's totally normal. Not every person fits in every single box. And if we all did, we'd be frankly really boring. So
yeah. Oh, for sure. I actually had
go through that. You what?
I had the same exact note saying that I think I'm a mixture of A and C, actually. So, which I'm pretty sure you are too. So,
yes, the supporter.
Yes, there's that. So, but how about this? Let's talk through a little bit. Like, do you want to define type A and then I can go through the characteristics of B, C, and D?
Sure.
Okay.
So I found a couple different things when I was like, I've always known like I am very type A. I don't like my time being wasted. I am extremely competitive, both with myself and with others. Thankfully, that has lowered a little bit. I won't say much because I'm highly competitive through my own children. And I have a really hard time watching their sporting activities, but I'm getting better. But not being a competitive athlete myself anymore, but I still compete against myself. So I'm not necessarily competing against others. I multitask a lot, very well. And this characteristic I don't care for, but it is in a lot of the research, is the hostile and aggressive. I wouldn't say I'm hostile and aggressive. I'm just high energy. And when I'm going to do something, to others, it may come off as an aggressive behavior, not necessarily physically, but possibly as like an emotional, I'm very invested in a situation and I'm going to see something through all the way till the end. And some people may be taken back by that. They may feel threatened by it, but that's a type A personality trait that I wouldn't necessarily align myself with.
Yeah. And to add a little bit to it, definitely the ambition, the drive, the competitiveness. I have to say I haven't always been type A. I think that I found myself being type A as I got older because I became more responsible for myself and I didn't have anybody to get me out of things. And then when I became more responsible for myself, then I was like, oh, I can handle this. And then I got really into it. And just like Jenna said, when I start something, I'm going to see it through. And I also almost thrive on the idea. And I think that you do too, where if you're in charge of something and it fails, you know that it's completely on you, but you also know that if it succeeds, it's 100% on you as well, which pushes you to work harder for it. So there's that. And then I also wanted to point out something that I found when I was researching is, and it's definitely true, type A's tend to struggle with burnout most, with stress most, with anxiety most, and then with dissatisfaction with work most. And I can definitely relate to that because whenever I worked at a job with a boss that gave me a set of duties and tasks and due dates, I did not respond well, not because I couldn't do the tasks, but because I felt like I needed to be in charge of myself. I don't know. What do you have to build on that?
So one thing I noticed, and I've been type A, I would say my whole life, school projects were really hard for me growing up because I didn't want to depend my grade on somebody else getting their portion of the project done. So oftentimes, and this is a huge downfall, and it's something I still do to this day, is I will say, I'll just do it all because I know I will get it done and I can't trust you. So I guess the trust issue is I don't know if somebody else is going to pull their weight And if they don't, like you said, it's reflective of you if you fail, but it's also reflective of you if you succeed. And I think one of the biggest things that, and I even noticed that in the workplace now for myself, is like, if there's somebody needs a task done, I'm like, I got it, let me do it, I'm done, I'll get it done, it'll be done. But I don't, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people that could do equally as good of a job. But I think for me, it's the like, oh my gosh, have they done it? Have they done it yet? Are they doing it the night before? Kind of situation. And so I think that's one of the areas where I very much struggle. And I tend to, that multitasking, I've got so many things going on. I don't like my time to be wasted, but I'm going to get it all done and I'm going to do it myself. So independent, yes, sometimes too much.
Yes, yes. Okay, so before we dive too far into our type A-ness and, oh, that sounded terrible, type A personalities. But before we get more into that, I think, talking about B, C, and D is really, really helpful because like you said, I didn't know there was a C and D until today. And so type B is what you would expect, easygoing, creative, relaxed, the opposite of type A, essentially.
Of us.
You know?
Yes. Um, go with the flow.
Yes. Like I've never been that nonchalant, right? Like I was the person who made lists to make lists, to check off lists, to highlight them, and like,
yes,
it was a thing. So now we've gotten away from that, but there's still things, but type B very much like, woo, whatever, fly by the seat of your pants, like book a plane ticket to wherever, we'll figure it out when we get there. Like, I'd love to be that human. I am not that human. I want to be, but I just don't think I can do it. Whereas type C and D, I think they're a little bit of a mixture of both of them, to be honest. But C, analytical, logical, stressed often. And then type D, anxious, worried, negative. So you probably found some more on those, but those are just some basics. What did you find on them that you want to add?
So type D, I had a really hard time even reading about it. It was like the depressed, the pessimistic, and I was like, oh, like, can we not stereotype that as one type of person that like, they may take that to heart and go, wow, that's really me in a nutshell. But it's like, no, those types of people do have other strengths and qualities that come from these other categories. And they don't have to be labeled themselves as the thinker or the overthinker or always this or always that. And I think that's one thing that we really need to stress in this is that you can have characteristics at certain types of situations in certain points of your life, but it doesn't define you all the way through. And like you said, jump on a plane and go somewhere. Brad and I were in Reno 2 weeks ago and we went and I didn't have a hotel booked and it drove him nuts. And I was like, there's a million hotels here. I booked it while we were eating dinner. Like it wasn't a big, like for whatever reason, it didn't bother me. And that was really shocking. And I was like, huh, I really did that. All right, I can be like this. So I think that's something to really like stress the importance is when you do maybe grab one of those personality characteristics from another category, recognize it, enjoy it, or go, whoa, didn't like the feeling of that. Let's not have that happen again.
Oh, that's super impressive. Seriously. Like I've talked to Rob before about how I was like, we should just go to the airport. We should just like pick the next flight that leaves and wherever we end up, we end up. But I was like, I'll just pack 2 outfits and call it good. But then I'm like, oh, but I'd really want to bring this and I'd really need to go running, need to go to the gym. And then it gets crazy again. And I'm like, no, Nikki, it's a carry-on and we don't know where we're going. It might be hot, it might be cold, it'll be fine. But no, I can't do it. I want to do it.
Yeah, the hotel, that was like pushing my limit. I don't think I could get on a plane and just throw the dart and go.
Right? I don't know. I couldn't do it either, but I want to find personnel, like ways to be able to do it. So like, we can go into that too, but I also think, let's see. So that was my biggest thing that I found was an issue because I was so type A when it came to like family time and weekends that I really, really struggled to shut it off. And so that was a big piece that was a problem for Rob and I because he's very type A with certain things, but he's also very type B with other things. He's that perfect mixture, right? I shouldn't say perfect, nobody's perfect, but like he had a lot better grasp on how to handle being type A where he should be and where to be type B. And so I finally came to the conclusion like, okay, when I get up on a Saturday or Sunday or it's supposed to be a family day because it's this off day, whatever, I need to be able to get X, Y, and Z done. So give me 60 minutes to do what I need to do. And then I can be as nonchalant as you want to be, but I need at least this small section of time to make sure that my brain is set up and ready to be nonchalant. So that was something that I personally tried to start pulling in order to help balance it out. Have you done anything that has helped balance it out?
So I think like that actually like one of my things that I like took notes on was really like resonating with is like the relaxing part without the guilt. And so like how do we do that? One of the ways you do that is by getting your 60 minutes knowing you can check these things off and then have the guilt-free relaxation for the rest of the day. And some of the other things so that would be like your mental downtime. You know the task at hand, you don't have to think about it. It's on autopilot and check it's done.
Mhm.
And then moving into the rest of the day, you're not on autopilot because you don't know what you're doing. And so I think like giving yourself that mental downtime, knowing that it's going to be maybe a higher mental day for you because it's not planned, which some people may look at that and go, well, isn't that the mental downtime? And it's like, well, no, that's not for you. But one of the things that I read about was that like that can be one of the times when it promotes the most like productivity and creativity. And so it's like you knowing that you have that time of your own personal mental downtime to be creative for the rest of it and like really focusing in on what your, you know, what your version of mental downtime is for you, I guess is what I'm saying, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Side note, do you have someone knocking on your door?
Of course. He's
Maybe.
writing me letters that I can't see it.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
Insert mom life. Mine are working out right. They're
Right?
waiting for an argument to come out. It's fine. So I also think, like you were saying earlier, right? Like we can't put ourselves in a box. I really think that I am mostly a mix of A and C. Because I mean, I do struggle a ton with being like stressed out about stuff, but stress is also one that falls into type A's. And
Yes.
I think some benefits, right? There's benefits to being type A. There's benefits to being all of these different.
Absolutely.
But like for me personally, and then you can go through what type A has gotten you, and then we can go through the things that is not benefit us doing. So benefits of a type A for me, or type A and C for me, is I started a business, right? Like pretty much by myself. Yes, I had support and help or whatever, but I figured it out and I just decided to not quit even when I probably maybe should have. I am able to get tasks done. I don't really care how hard it is or how long it's going to take or how in tuned with time I need to be for whatever amount of time I'm going to get the task done. I prefer to be like on my own. The fact that I actually have 4 people helping me with my business is a huge step. Because I have Coach Jenna and Coach Jamie. I have our assistant McKinsey, who is absolutely God, a lifesaver. And then I have somebody that runs my website. And then I actually do have someone that helps me with all of my accounting books because God almighty, I suck at that. So that was huge. But like I said earlier, I really needed to be my own boss. I needed to be in control of my time. I needed to call the shots in order to feel like that when I was successful, it's because I chose to be. Um,
Mhm.
and then I'm able to set really big goals, like lofty goals. And honestly, I've reached a lot of them, which is kind of crazy, but that's true. Like type A's are able to follow through. So those are the types of things that have benefited me by being a type A. You go.
So with me, it's like, okay, I'm a teacher. So like my school year is pretty much like planned out for me. These are my breaks. These are the days I go to school. Yeah, I get a few sick days here and there. I'm going to talk to you really quickly about my negative of type A because negative or type A's are, I mean, I guess you could say it, we're workaholics. It's, you know, we do that. And for me, in the last couple of years, I had to learn to like step away from work and go, whoa, my kids are sick. I need to take care of them. School will happen. It will be okay. And everything will be fine. Like right now, there's an alarm going off. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on out there. My husband's somewhere out there. I'm hoping. But so like it goes back to like I had to step away from work and knowing that those people can take care of something, there will be a sub and it will be fine. But for me, it's like I feel guilty. I'm like, well, wait, why should I feel guilty about taking care of my own children? That's a super negative thing that I've had to really overcome in the last couple of years. And I have done a way good job at it. Now kid's sick, subs in, I'm out. See ya. I'm gonna take it. And everyone's like, thank you. Like, yeah, let us help out here at work, you know, and get things done that way. So anyway, so like I was saying, one of the things that I've really had to overcome, and now that I can like focus for a minute because I was clearly pulled away from whatever that was, my train of thought, was like, that's awful that I was like putting work before my kids. And so one thing that I've had to really do, and this has taken me like the last 6 years, I mean, Cody's 7, so essentially since my kids have been born, is like, no, I need to take care of my kids before I take care of somebody else's kids. And that's okay, because I would expect parents to do the same thing. I would understand completely if my kids' teachers needed a sub and they were at home taking care of their kids. Like, I would fully expect that, but why could I not accept it out of myself? Something I've just continued to work on. I can go over some of the strategies of type A, like helping with the relaxing without guilt, or if you want me to get into that later, I can do that too, but I have a
Yeah.
handful of those.
I'll go through the struggles that I've had since you kind of went through that, and then we can go over the
Okay.
strategies that you found or you use. That
Yeah.
would be really good, and I can build on that. So struggles I personally had being mostly type A, because really it happened when I really got into running my own business, which started in 2019. Like I was type A before that, but it really dug deep when that happened. And honestly, like the stress became huge. And then the anxiety was insane. If you've been around here for a minute, you know that I struggled massively with gut health issues and hormone issues due to all the stress and anxiety and the overwhelm and the burnout. All things that are really, really common for type A's. Honestly, the people that struggle with gut health issues are almost always type A people due to the high stress that they put on themselves and the pressure they put on themselves in order to accomplish so many things. And then always being overstimulated or easily overstimulated, and then a short temper, right? Like, because all of a sudden, I mean, I used to go like dancing all night in really loud bars, right, and having a great time, and now like too many sounds in the house drives me crazy. And I'm
Yep.
like, oh my God, what has happened here? So that's a big sign that you just have too many things bouncing around in your brain all the time. And like you said earlier, you struggled a lot to put your own kids first. Even when you expect other people to put their own kids first, you struggled to apply that to yourself. I also did the same thing, was a big part of why I needed to figure out how to balance this stuff out, because I was missing my kids' lives and I was working from home. It was pretty sad. Rob and I were so distant. So it was not going to be okay if we continued that. So, um, you might relate to some of these struggles as well if you are in this category. But I guess what to do to balance it, right? Or how to calm yourself down. What do you do? What did you find?
And so I think one of the biggest things when I look back and I'm having those like maybe a week or 2 weeks or moments of like, overwhelm, overthinking, extra things, I go back to the basics. Like, what is my day starting like? And for me, honestly, I am up, water, straight out to my gym. If I'm not out in the gym by like 5:30 or at least walking by 5:30, like the rest of my day is so, unless it's a planned rest day, but the rest of my day is so thrown off because I don't have that mental downtime to myself. I don't have to think when I'm in the gym. I let somebody else program for me. I don't program it myself. There is, even if you're in a situation where you're a professional, they always say like the electrician's light bulb is always out on their porch because they're going to have somebody else do it, even though they're the electrician. You and I both coach and program, but I don't use my own programming. I let somebody else do it for me, kind of thing. So, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think so for me, like I said, like starting my day out with exercise in a plan is like hands down the biggest thing. So like I said, when kids were sick and I was having to when I wasn't able to get my first part of the day done, I was like, oh my gosh, all hell's breaking loose. I got to go to work. I can't call in sick. I got to at least get back on schedule with that. And so I think that was one of the big things. So exercising in the morning, like starting with my morning routine. One thing that I did, and we did do this as a group last year, was coloring. And as weird as that sounds, is like there is so much benefit and so much research to like the brain body connection when you can just sit down. You could be coloring a rubber duck. It does not matter. Sit down, disconnect from the things. If you have kids, sit down with them. I can guarantee you they are going to be thrilled to have you sitting down and coloring. So print out a couple pages, have them on the side, get an adult coloring book, send your friend an adult coloring book with obscene things. Sorry, been there, done that. She's
I
gonna
still
grab
have
it
mine.
now.
It's over there.
That was like, I mean, I've sent that book to a handful of people that wouldn't be offended by some of the word choices that are in there, but like find something that you can just let your mind be blank with. One of the things that they did mention that I personally is not one of my go-tos, although I did talk to you about that this week, was like social activities. Sometimes for type A's that can be too much and be overwhelming. So it depends on the situation and the person that you're in. If you're like, oh, I'm going to go out to the bars, for me, that would not be a situation where I would be calm and be able to like move through my day. But if it was like a one-on-one with a friend, totally fine, would be helpful. And one of the other big things, and I would be the biggest proponent and your biggest cheerleader, and this is where my type C comes in supporter, is seek professional help. I've personally gone through counseling. My kids have gone through it. My mom's actually a therapist, but it's such a different experience when your parent is a therapist. And I'm sure we have people out there that are in those situations. But seeking out outside help rather than immediate family help would be the most beneficial. And maybe 6 weeks, it may be a short period of time. That was what I needed. And I was like, wow, I just needed a neutral party to talk to about these things. So huge proponent of outside source therapy, whether it's virtual or in person. But I think, and then looking back and going, which one of these worked the best in that situation? How did it help me? You know, what can I identify that I pulled from it? And how did those around me, like, oh, did they all go, mom is relaxed, we like this side of mom? And you can kind of feed off of that and see like what their reactions are with different techniques that you can use to kind of help bring it down a little bit.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so I'll be totally transparent. I've never gone through counseling. I do have to,
Fine.
right? Like I've considered it, but I've never done it. But I will say that I've always had someone to kind of talk to, but Jenna's been my go-to person to talk through life's awful moments and the best moments, right? Over the last few years, like something hits the fan, Jenna is probably the first to know, and she's going to help talk me through it, right? So she's become like my in place therapist, I suppose. But I think that's an important thing, is to have someone to be able to like openly discuss it with, whether they have a response or they're just listening. It's helpful. And it's not Rob, who the problem may be with. It's not with my mom, whom the problem might be with, right? We're able to just talk, and it's helpful. So I think having that outside source is great, whether it's a counselor or a really, really good friend that you can thoroughly trust. Uh,
Mhm.
you sound like you have something to add to that. I don't know.
I was just gonna say, and that comes along with like the type C personality, and type A and C do go hand in hand. Like while the one is the competitive, the time sensitive, all the things, the type C is the supporter. And so it's like, I think for me personally, that's where like my supporter type C comes out, is like, I am here to be your person kind of thing.
Yes.
And that, you know, and those people will gravitate towards you if you are a type C person also, and you may find yourself in that position. And I will say again, if you are a big type C, you need to find yourself a type C person that you can then go to. They say every therapist has a therapist, and having grown up with one, my mom totally did. So it's, you know, if you are that type C supporter person, find somebody that you can also, you know, have those experiences with.
Oh,
Because I feel the same way, like something blew up, I'm calling my buddies, I'm calling you, you know, you have to have those people in your life that you can let it out with.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't, I would have imploded by now if I hadn't. But I think all of those are really, really good points. And that's excellent. Like I don't follow my own programming either, right? Like I can't program for myself. I don't want to coach myself. Like I actually, Jenna and I were calling each other out on our own crap here for a while, and it helped a ton to get us both like into a better mindset about everything. Like sometimes coaches need coaches, or therapists need therapists, or, you know, whatever the case is. Everybody needs somebody kind of outlet too. So it's important to not look at that as a weakness. So that's
Correct.
um a few things that I think are really important to note about this as well, because I know a lot of people we do work with are also type A's, is willing, not looking at it as a bad thing, but being able to turn it on and turn it off. Like we were talking about earlier, like knowing when it's appropriate to have it be right up front. Yes, type A. It's great when you're at work. It's great when you're accomplishing a task or whatever, but then knowing how to turn it off is a big piece too, so that we don't always struggle with that overwhelm. We don't always struggle with that, you know, that super edginess, right? That's a huge piece to be able to understand. Um, a few things that I did to be able to do that, and I know you talked through some of yours, setting work hours and boundaries and actually respecting them, and then expecting other people to understand that I'm going to respect them. So like I used to set meetings that were at night all the time, or I do weekend calls, or I do weekend workouts, or I would do trips and like have people in town. And I loved all those things, right? I loved spending time with people, but I also realized that I was spending time so much with my business that I wasn't spending any time with myself or with my family. Cause even my workouts aren't my own time because I have to record pieces of that for my business, right? It's like never just me. So I really did that. I also decided to stop social media-ing so much on the weekends. I don't post on weekends anymore. Some stories go up, but that's about it. And I've called that okay for me. Um, and that's a really good thing. And I also start with my morning routine, just like you do. It's so imperative for me to have that little bit of starting time. Um, Focusing on sleep for type A's is really, really huge. Right? Yeah, you know that just as much as I do.
Yes.
Um, we struggle with sleep because we have so many lists going on in our heads, right? When we lay down, we're like, oh, but this, and this, and also we have a million tabs open, right? Well, we need to learn how to prioritize sleep so we can focus on all those tabs and those lists when we are ready to focus on them. Making priority lists is huge. Like I said earlier, I was a big list maker, but now it's more or less just a priority and a secondary list. Like, what do I need to get done first? And then what can I get done later? And giving myself due dates instead of expecting everything to be done right now. Because that's another thing that was really bothering me too, is I was expecting to have myself do so much high quality work at once that all of it was starting to suffer. And so giving yourself priorities and due dates helps you accomplish the task, but it also helps you accomplish it at your higher standard a lot better. Um, and then my last one I wanted to throw in was being more realistic with all goals, personal, business, and family, because a lot of people you'll see will say like influencers or whatever will say, either your personal life is going to thrive or your business is going to thrive. You have to decide which one is going to thrive and which one's going to suffer all the time. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't, because if your business is thriving and your family and personal life is suffering, are you really winning? I don't think most people look at that as a win. And then the other way around too, that doesn't work either. So there's got to be this give and take where you have specific goals and timeframes and really realistic goals with all of them that help bring all of them up at the same time. So that's what I had. Sorry.
Just to touch a couple things you touched on. So like the priority list. So like your needs to do and your wants to do. And that's actually something that they do at my kids' school is like, these are your must do's and these are your may do's. And so they're like different tasks that they have throughout the week is like, hey, you have to get all of these done and then you may get these things done. And so I think that's like, I love that they're teaching that to the kids from such a young age. I mean, my son was in 4th grade last year. Actually, he even had it in 3rd grade, the must do's versus may do's. And so I think it also gives like the kids the autonomy of like, hey, which ones of these do I want to get done first? And then I get to go to here. And I think that's, there's a validity to that in terms of like helping them recognize early that the type A-ness can start coming out very early. And there's plenty of kids that are like, well, no, it's just one list. I need to do it all. And it's like, well, let's reevaluate what must get done and what may get done. And then one other thing you talked about on like with the gut health with type A's, and another thing that I was reading about is like, the headaches, the hypertension, the constant, I mean, it can get to a point where there's like, you're dealing with like these heart murmurs and a variety of different things that it can be health detrimental. And I think that's something that like, a lot of our clients are like, well, I'm all of a sudden having this. And it's like, okay, well, it might not be something physically going on with you, but it's presenting itself physically because of the emotional attachment to it or because of the overwhelm to it. And so I think that's something to keep in mind is like, when you do start having maybe potentially these ailments or things that are starting to all of a sudden bother you just out of nowhere, take a step back and evaluate other pieces of your life and see if maybe those have influenced part of it. Sleep being a huge one, and I am the worst at it. I will tell you that as a coach, it is something that I am constantly working on. And, as long as I'm constantly working on it, it's kind of all I can do at this point. But I think it is to recognize like when I'm feeling good, taking a peek, why am I feeling good? Why are things going so smooth? Oh, because of X, Y, and Z. When things are not good, why are they not good? Oh, because I've let X, Y, and Z slip, kind of thing. So I think the reflective piece, and that's the educator piece in me, is constantly reflecting on, the progress and the process versus the outcome.
Oh yeah. Oh, and that reminded me of something too that you had touched on earlier a bit is part of like the type A personality, at least for me, is if I don't know the answer to something, I will read and research until I understand it, at least enough to understand why something's happening to me or why I'm struggling or why I'm doing well. Because I sincerely believe like action reduces fear, right? The unknown of why something's happening to you will only drive a type A more insane. And that's like most people that have autoimmune issues are type A's because of the high stress and everything. And so trying to like take action, at least learn what's going on inside of you and why that's happening will only give those type A's maybe more of a um enthusiastic approach to calming the F down, right? Because that's how it worked for me. Like if somebody just told me, well, you're just too stressed out, you need to calm down and breathe and go touch your feet in the ground, but they didn't tell me why, well, then I'm not going to do it. Right.
No.
So, like if you're a type A person and you're struggling, go do the research, right? Look at yourself and don't be Dr. Google either, right?
Thank you for saying that. Don't Google everything.
Right. Don't Google everything. But like if you're struggling with all kinds of different things, like for instance, when I get super stressed out, my digestion shuts down, I get a ton of acne and my psoriasis all comes out. I'm like, bing, boom, boom, Nikki, calm down. Right. And I know that because I've done all the research and the education to understand that that's how my body reacts to those things. And that's when I'm like, okay, we need to take a step back. And so just being very, very self-aware, but also being willing to take those steps to help yourself understand. If you understand, you're much more willing to follow through on changes or lifestyle improvements too.
Yep. That's what it's like with kids. When they ask why, they want to know an answer. They need justification and reasoning. When you're 4 years old is constantly asking you why, they're seeking information. Now, at 4 years old, yes, you can give them incorrect information, but as long as there's a name for this term and I can't think of it, as long as you've satisfied their need to have some sort of justification, they are okay. But that's their level of type A-ness. And that's our level. We're in our mid-30s and mid-40s, folks in here. As you get older, your type A may go further or less, just like you said, you've noticed it more so since you started your business. Ebb and flow. It's going to change throughout your life. And I think that's one thing, like I talked about at the beginning, is like, don't get so fixated on if you're type A, you're type A. No, you can be type A with a wing of C or whatever you want to call it. I know that Enneagrams also have the wings and the butterflies and all that. So I have not dabbled a ton in that, but there is like, you are not just, it's not black and white. And that's another area where type A's have a hard time with the gray areas. We don't do well with gray areas.
No, we don't. I want to know when, why, how, and what is the outcome and what are the expectations. And oh, don't you dare tell me, hey, like we need to talk and then have it be like, hey, you want to go grab supper? No, just flip and ask me if you want to go grab supper. Like, don't ask me to
Yeah.
come to your office first. Like, oh, I hate
Yeah,
that.
don't send me a message. Hey, when you get a chance, can you swing by my office? Please don't do that. Please
Don't
don't
do
do
that.
that to type A folks. And if you are
No.
a boss listening to this, please don't do that to your employees.
Yes, just be straightforward. If you have
Just be
something bad to
straightforward.
talk about, be like, hey, we need to have a chat. I need you to come in here as soon as you can. Whatever, how to put
Yes.
that, I'm not sure, because I just want to know, right? You can't tell me like
Hmm.
at 9 a.m. We need to talk at 4 and
No.
am I getting fired? Are we
And
going
now for the rest of the day,
right?
yeah, for the rest of the day, you're running through the list. What did I do? What didn't I do? Where did something, and again, a type B personality may be totally fine with that. And God bless those people. I wish I had that sometimes for myself,
Yes,
but it may not be. They may look at us and go, what do you mean that bothers you all day? Well, everybody has their personality types. So
absolutely. Everybody has a personality type. So bosses, please understand that you might be a type B person, but you might be working with some type A people. So please take that into consideration. And if you just want to ask them to go to supper or something, or you're like, hey, nice shoes, like just say it. Just say it. That's
hey,
fine.
I have a project I need your help on. Okay, great. Thanks. That's all I
Great.
needed to hear.
Or hey, just throwing in there, right? Like there's no issues. Just want to have it.
Yes. I
That's
think
great.
that is something that can be, I think in society, we are afraid to say that, hey, nothing, no rush, no problem. But when you get a chance, can
Yeah.
you? And I think that really, and that is, I think in, going off of our last podcast, in a relationship, hey, there's not an issue, but can you call me when you get a chance?
Mhm.
Not just call me. Yeah,
Yes.
because it is, I think, especially for us type A's, our mind goes to the negative sometimes. So I think we all just need to be a little more compassionate in terms of like, if you do have a friend that's type A, know that they are maybe potentially working through some of these things to lower their stress levels. And now you need to deal with baby girl.
But no,
So,
yes,
I mean,
agreed.
I think
In
it
the
is like,
relationship, right? Like you were saying just now, in the relationship, also having that clarity, Rob,
yep,
a long way. Thank you for clarifying that you're not leaving me because you want to talk about like, hey, we need dog food, right? Like, cool, thanks. It's ridiculous what we turn things into.
it is, it is.
But anyway, I don't know that I have much more to add on this one, but just want to like end it at least on my end. Like, hey, if this is what you're struggling with, there is another side to it. You are able to improve on it. And I'm not saying you need to necessarily change, but if you are struggling with a lot of ailments that are attached to this, it is probably time to do some education and try to adjust some things so that it improves. So
Yep. Yep. And I will say, find 2 or 3 things that if you are in the height of a moment as a type A personality that you can sit down and do to help bring yourself back down to earth. Coloring, go for a walk, listen to music, you know, reach out for help.
yes,
So, and if,
absolutely.
you know, if that can be us, we are here to be that person for you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, lady. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Welcome. All right. See ya.
Bye.